Beware. Superbugs you should be afraid of. There's a reason why penicillin is arguably the greatest discovery of the 20th century. We are now able to ward off infections easily, and population-wiping epidemics like the Black Death and smallpox no longer occur. But repeated uses of antibiotics have led to the rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, or superbugs, that have evolved themselves to withstand the effects of bacteria. They're becoming more widespread, with new strains being discovered more and more frequently. Here we present to you the top superbugs you should be afraid of. Number 8. Escherichia coli, E. coli. Escherichia coli, or E. coli, are the large group of bacteria commonly found in the gut of warm-blooded animals, including us humans. Most strains are harmless, and some, in fact, are beneficial to their hosts. But the harmful ones, however, can cause serious food poisoning. They tend to grow massively in fecal matter and get transmitted around easily in unhygienic environments, leading them to end up contaminating food. Symptoms of food poisoning caused by these harmful E. coli strains include diarrhea, urinary tract infections, respiratory illness, and pneumonia. A rather disturbing ability possessed by E. coli and some other related bacteria is their ability to transfer DNA among one another. This sharing of genetic material has led to the rise of Shiga toxin-producing E. coli, a new strand of the bacteria that is not only resistant to a number of classes of antibiotics, but also capable of producing the Shiga toxin, a toxin related to dysentery or bloody diarrhea. Worryingly, these antibiotic-resistant E. coli are often responsible for passing on genes that help other species of bacteria resist antibiotics. One of the causes behind the emergence of antibiotic-resistant E. coli is due to farmers feeding antibiotics to animals to promote growth. In 2012, the CDC reported that drug-resistant strains of E. coli causing urinary tract infections in women could be traced back to chickens fed antibiotics. This has led to calls to ban such use of drugs as growth promoters in animals. Number 7. Acinetobacter baumannii. While other species of Acinetobacter are found in soil samples, the notorious Acinetobacter baumannii is almost exclusively found in hospitals. The bacteria invades vulnerable bodies through hospital equipment like surgical implants and central lines. Sporadic outbreaks are common and are especially prevalent in intensive care units. It is estimated that tens of thousands of hospital patients get killed by the bacteria in the U.S. every year. Infections present themselves in the form of pneumonia, skin and wound infections, bacteremia, and meningitis. Unlike other bacteria, which developed resistance as an evolutionary response to combat our use of antibiotics, Acinetobacter baumannii already possesses an inherent level of resistance. Some strains are resistant to practically all antibiotics, and treatment can cost up to $100,000 more per patient compared to those who have identical wounds but without the bacteria present. And to make it worse, mortality rate from these resistant strains approaches up to 80%. Acinetobacter baumannii infection was also prevalent among wounded American soldiers in field hospitals during the Iraq War, leading to the disease being called the Iraqibacter. The multi-drug resistant Iraqibacter has continued to be an issue for veterans and soldiers who served in Iraq, and has even spread to civilian hospitals in the U.S. in part due to the transport of wounded soldiers through multiple medical facilities. Number 6. Salmonella. Salmonella is a gut bacteria present in many animals. The bacterium is easily transmitted from animals to humans through the ingestion of food contaminated with feces. Infection of its pathogenic strain leads to typhoid and paratyphoid, where patients experience severe diarrhea that can lead to severe dehydration and toxicosis. Salmonella can also cause meningitis. Without treatment, risk of death may be as high as 25%. Thankfully, the use of antibiotics and the results of improved sanitation have significantly reduced the disease's occurrence rates in the developed world, and risks of death have fallen to just around 1%. However, resistant strains have been emerging mainly in Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. With over 2,500 different strains, Salmonella continues to cause a serious medical challenge to doctors, veterinarians, and public health officials across the world. Number 5. Pseudomonas aeruginosa. The Pseudomonas aeruginosa bacteria are highly common, living in water, the earth, most man-made surfaces, and even in our skin. It thrives well on moist surfaces, causing it to have a tendency toward wounds and damaged tissue. When tissue is damaged or the immune system is impaired, the bacteria strikes, infecting the body and causing sepsis and inflammation. P. aeruginosa is known to be one of the bacteria that thrive very well in hospital settings. It can survive on medical equipment such as catheters, and the bacteria are often found to have aggressively remained on other hospital supplies, even after cleaning, leading to its transmission from patient to patient. If the bacteria colonize vital body organs such as the lungs and kidneys, fatal results await. All in all, 1 in every 10 infections acquired in hospitals are due to P. aeruginosa. P. aeruginosa uses multiple methods to resist the effect of antibiotics, including pumping the drugs out of its cell matrix, and it is constantly evolving new methods of resistance. These resistant strains of Pseudomonas aeruginosa are a major threat to hospitalized patients, giving only a 50-50 chance of survival. Number 4. Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the infectious bacteria that causes tuberculosis, or TB. Many people have the bacteria lying dormant within them, but only when activated does tuberculosis occur, generally affecting the lungs. The disease presents itself with chronic cough, bloody sputum, weight loss, and death if left untreated. In the developed world, tuberculosis might seem like something associated with the past. Before the discovery of antimicrobials, tuberculosis was pretty much a death sentence for anyone unfortunate enough to catch it. But now, with proper health management involving compulsory vaccinations, early screening, proper isolation, and antibiotic treatment, tuberculosis is no longer much of a threat, or so it seems. TB still kills at least 1 million people every year across the globe, mainly in the underdeveloped world, and that's not all. Recent years have seen the rise of extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis, shortened XDR-TB. It is a form of tuberculosis caused by TB bacteria that are resistant to some of the most effective anti-TB drugs. To make matters worse, the bacteria's resistance is growing, something that jeopardizes the major gains made in the control of the disease throughout the years. XDR-TB's true scale is still unclear, as many underdeveloped countries lack the capacity to properly gauge its extent. However, 84 countries have had confirmed cases, and an estimated 40,000 people worldwide get infected with XDR-TB every year. An uncomfortable revelation considering how easy any traveler can just carry the bacteria between countries. Number 3. Clostridium difficile. This bacteria often lives inside your intestines in small, harmless amounts. However, some stimuli can trigger it to overgrow, leading to serious problems caused by these spore-forming bacteria. Clostridium difficile is characterized by its production of multiple toxins, leading to a range of symptoms like watery diarrhea, fever, nausea, and abdominal pain. The worst complications are usually associated with inflammation of the colon. A condition called toxic megacolon can occur, where the inflamed colon stretches and distends greatly. Perforation may also occur, leading to sepsis and eventually death. Surgery is usually required to remove the infected intestine in these severe cases. Usually when infection occurs, the next step is of course antibiotic therapy, but this is where it gets complicated. In our gut, there are millions of bacteria present, usually harmless and even necessary as they help in food digestion. However, the use of antibiotics may knock out all of these healthy bacteria in the process, leading to further problems up ahead. Furthermore, the bacteria-resistant Clostridium difficile might still survive, ended up taking over completely in the absence of its competitors. Like MRSA, Clostridium difficile is one of the hospital lurkers, usually affecting chronic and elderly patients. Spores of the bacteria can easily be left behind on items and difficult to wash off, making spread that much easier. A minimum of 250,000 get infected every year in the US. Number 2. Neisseria gonorrhea. You may already be familiar with gonorrhea, the horrific STD that leads to pus discharge from the genitals, as well as their inflammation and swelling. It spreads easily through oral, anal, and vaginal contact, as well as passing from mother to child during delivery. Unlike most infections, people who are infected often do not show symptoms for up to 2 weeks after initial contamination, causing many to unknowingly spread the disease. At least 200,000 individuals get infected in the US every year. Over the years, the bacteria that causes it, Neisseria gonorrhea, has developed a level of resistance toward the drugs usually prescribed to treat gonorrheal infections. Super gonorrhea, as they call it, sounds funny, but it is no laughing matter. Antibiotic resistance means that these STDs, once cured with a few pills, would now require much more invasive and longer treatment. Medical professionals are already switching to different lines of drugs in common gonorrhea cases in order to reduce the risk of the bacteria becoming drug resistant. Rather than penicillin, another form of antibiotics known as cephalosporins are often used now. Worryingly, a strain of the bacteria resistant to these cephalosporins was found in Japan in 2011. Number 1. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. The original superbug. Nearly everyone's heard of it, but few understand how pervasive it has become. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, is a strain of bacteria that's resistant to the antibiotics used to treat typical staph infections. Many healthy people have regular staph bacteria on their skin and up their nose without falling sick, and like common staph, MRSA is not that particularly virulent, but for those already unwell or with open wounds, it can easily take hold. This makes it awfully dangerous in hospitals, the place where it commonly spreads, leading to terrible complications for patients during their stay. Staphylococcus aureus can easily invade the body and attack bones, joints, and major internal organs. Most commonly, MRSA causes skin infections, such as abscesses and necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating disease where the bacteria penetrates under the skin and can cause death of tissues within hours. Left untreated, more than 70% of patients die from it. MRSA can also cause infections throughout the body, such as respiratory and urinary tract infections, particularly in those with weak immune systems. The number of cases striking communities outside hospitals is rising, particularly in daycare centers, schools, and gym locker rooms, especially since it can spread easily with skin-to-skin contact. According to the NIH, roughly 1 in 50 people carry around a strain of the bacteria, and a minimum of 80,000 people in the US get infected every year. Find out more about fatal entities that will kill you by subscribing or clicking on one of the links below.